Fool me once and it's shame on me, but you know you better tread carefully. Fool me twice, I'm your enemy. I'm your enemy. If you push, I push back. Try to hide, but I'll hunt you down.
artificial life you create. Fight to stay relevant, disregard our negligence. It's evident, it's prevalent. We've halted our development, doomed to repeat this cycle. Cause algorithms haunt me. Air your dirty laundry, hang it all on me. Getting sick of scrolling down, 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 down. Exhausted, think I finally lost it. Drew the line and crossed it. Getting sick of scrolling down, 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 down. We're gonna keep falling down, 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 down. The wheel will go on spinning round, 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 round. Never escape scrolling down, 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 down. This cycle keeps on going round, 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 round.
Hello. It has been much too long since I have done one of these. I've missed it. Actually, before I start, if there is anyone watching this either live or when it's posted on YouTube, and you're watching for the wrong reasons, and you know who you are, don't make accusations that you cannot back up. We have been nothing but kind to you, and we have every right to criticize you. You said our name. We're not going to stay silent. We are going to be more outspoken about it. You don't have to like it. We won't insult you. We will not make baseless claims and assumptions. We don't agree with a lot of the things that other people have said to you. But don't mistake our kindness for weakness. We asked one thing of you during that stream. You couldn't even respect that. Our boundaries are not up for negotiation. We have said our piece, but that does not mean that we are going to go back into hiding and be cornered and intimidated into silence. Like I said, we won't insult you. We haven't. We've even defended you at points. You know that we do not deserve this. So we will keep being kind, because that is who we are. But we will be more outspoken. just because we criticize you does not give you the right to target us when we have done nothing wrong. That's all I wanted to say on that. I gave that person too much time as it is. So, as always, do not attack, harass, insult, seek out any of the people that I will be talking about or reacting to in this stream today. We do these streams, and I specifically do my streams to debunk misinformation about DID based on our own research that we have done over the years and our own experiences. And as always, once this is up on YouTube, there will be a pinned comment with a link to a Google Drive, or Google Doc rather. And that will have a list of sources that you can go and do your own research. This is not being made to harass or attack anyone who makes these. It is simply for educational purposes to stop the spread of misinformation and stigma about a disorder that we live with every day. I think the volume should be fine.
Okay, so here's the timeline. Brittle bone disease, agoraphobia, DID, BPD, bipolar, all in the same content arc. I'm not trying to undiagnose anyone through my ring light here. It is possible to have multiple diagnoses. But then, when the views drop and a new disorder shows up like a plot twist, it's the internet, and unfortunately, some people are gonna talk about it. Because this isn't about one creator, this is about a trend. Where mental illness is no longer a diagnosis, it is more so a vibe, a branding. It comes with aesthetic edits, alter introductions, and of course, in this case, we need the Mary Jane. And listen,
I'm pausing this here to say there is nothing wrong with alter introductions. Alters are their own people. If they would like to introduce themselves, then they have every right to do so. That doesn't mean that they are faking. It would be just like any person without DID or OSDD introducing themselves to another person or online.
and interestingly, people with mental illness are allowed to have fun too. I can personally appreciate the stoned witchy altar introduction. Go for it. But when you're introducing an altar with, blowing the bong smoke, to me it's feeling a little bit less like awareness and more like a limited time Hulu series.
Not everything that someone with DID or OSDD posts is required to bring awareness or provide education. These streams that I do are educational. That is the intended purpose. Streams such as the ones that Echo or Michaela or Erez do are for entertainment and not necessarily education or awareness. They are just being themselves, doing what they would like to do on stream. we don't exist just to be sentient educators about what we live with.
And I'm here to zoom out and ask, what happens when your trauma becomes algorithmically optimized? So if at the end of this video you're like, hey, so what did I just watch? Congratulations, you're in the right place. Make sure to like this video and subscribe, or don't. Free will is an illusion and the algorithm already knows what you want. Let's get into it. Okay, quick refresher. What is dissociative identity disorder? It's a trauma response where the brain separates into multiple identity states. These alters are...
That is incorrect, according to the theory of structural dissociation. The theory of structural dissociation is the most widely accepted theory as to how DID is developed. And it states that everyone is born with separate ego states, such as, I need food, I'm tired, I'm sad, this hurts. When you are around the ages of around 7 to 9, on average, your personality integrates. All of the ego states and everything that you've learned in your life experience will integrate into one fully formed personality. After that, it cannot be broken. You cannot develop DID after that, which is why it is a childhood trauma disorder. If there is severe repeated trauma before the personality integrates, amnesia walls will be put up so that the child can continue to live life normally as if nothing is happening, because they won't remember it. That is their brain protecting them. That is why a lot of people with DID will not remember their trauma, especially at first. That was the case with us. We went many years saying that we had no trauma at all. This was before we discovered the system. It wasn't until around late 2020 to early 2021 that memories started coming up. At first, it was just one small thing. And as more alters came forward, we learned there was a lot more. And there is a very specific trauma that I will not go into detail about, that we learned about in late 2023. But that is how DID forms according to the theory of structural dissociation. It's not a splitting of the personality or the mind. It is the prevention of the personality being able to integrate. And obviously, alters can split off later in life. But how it forms is not a splitting of a full personality.
Are created to survive what is often early and extreme trauma. We're not talking about your average mood swing, we're talking memory gaps, identity disruption, losing time. Basically, it is serious, and a lot of the internet loves to misunderstand that. So it's 2025, trauma-based mental illness is now being treated as an aesthetic for clicks, and nothing screams clinical disorder like your good old bong hit and some witch energy.
I'm in love with marijuana. Makes me feel just like an iguana. And oh, I like you like no other. In the
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying that you cannot have DID and enjoy some Mary Jane. I'm not saying that alters aren't allowed to have their own distinct vibe. But unfortunately, DID is one of the most doubted mental health conditions. People get called fakers before they even finish saying, "Hi, I have..." DID isn't real. That's not how DID works. Yeah, and I have a unicorn alter who pays my taxes. Now, I'm not gonna get too clinical, but during a DID evaluation, generally professionals will require you to stop taking different substances for an extended period of time because symptoms can mimic a lot of the same symptoms, such as dissociation, memory gaps, mood swings, that out of body, but it might be.
That is true. The DSM-5 specifically says that the symptoms cannot be a result of substances.
The edibles vibe. Basically, if your symptoms can be explained by edibles or anxiety, you might not be getting a DID diagnosis today. Okay, I'm Gen Z, I get it. Maybe the whole stoner witch thing was like ironic. It was a bit. The thing is, TikTok does not have sarcasm subtitles. When you post something dead serious, people might take it at face value.
I'm going to be completely honest here. People may disagree with this. That is not the issue of the person posting content, if people take it all seriously. In some cases. Obviously, if it's a pattern and being done deliberately, that is an issue. But media literacy is not where it needs to be. That is all I'm going to say on that.
Even if it is a bit, it's still kind of glamorizing, definitely stigmatizing the disorder. But okay, let's rewind to the pre-DID era. So we're getting ready for a protest iconic fit check, but they have casually dropped in the past that they do live with osteogenesis imperfecta, aka brittle bone disease.
Okay, I'm going to skip over that. I'm only going to be focusing on the DID aspects.
I mean, just like, as a person, I don't know that that's grounded in reality. And then things get interesting because just a little while after posting that video, they start claiming, hey, I also have DID. I mean, to be clear, it's absolutely possible to have osteogenesis imperfecta and also DID. It's not exactly common. I mean, they are two completely unrelated conditions. One is genetic and physical, and the other one is genetic and trauma-based. So
A DID is not a genetic disorder. DID would not exist if there was not the presence of severe repeated trauma during childhood. Nobody in our family that we are aware of has DID, except for us. There can be a genetic factor specifically for the inherent ability to dissociate at high levels. But that is all it is. It is not genetic, it is environmental.
If I had two rare disorders, and they both just happened to be referenced in the same movie that I just watched, I feel like that would be the first thing I'd bring up. I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime coincidence. But then in this creator's video, it actually wasn't mentioned at all. Almost like the connection had not occurred yet. But when you thought it could not get more unhinged, part 2 has entered the chat.
So this is part 2 to talking about my disability. So, the way that this impacts me in my day-to-day life, normally I would say I probably experience a dislocation a week maybe. It's almost always my knees for me, but that's not the case for everybody. Also, because of my chronic pain issues and my fatigue issues, I am an ambulatory wheelchair user, which means I use a wheelchair but not all the time. For me personally, I usually use it if I have to do any kind of long distance. If I have to be walking for more than 20-30 minutes, I will try to take my chair in, unless I'm being stubborn, and that usually winds up in me getting hurt. Currently, I'm having to use my wheelchair full-time because I actually fractured my leg right there. I can't remember what the name of the bone is, but if I do remember, I'll put it somewhere here. But yeah, that's what my day-to-day life is like.
Okay, you're using your wheelchair full-time because you have a tibial plateau fracture, which is a serious break near the knee. They're wearing a brace. Checks out. Chronic pain, fatigue, mobility aids. Valid. But the part that doesn't add up is when they are describing this fresh fracture, their legs are crossed. Which is wild because after a tibial plateau fracture,
I don't know why this is in the DID section. But I saw the caption in the video that she was playing. And people with DID are allowed to talk about just a physical disability in a video. Not everything needs to connect back to DID. If it's a video about their physical disorder, then maybe all they want to talk about is the physical disorder in that video. Not everything has to be related to DID.
should not be doing that. It puts strain on the healing bone, you risk displacement and re-injury, and if you're still in a brace or using a wheelchair, it's definitely not recommended. And then around this time, they quietly added DID to their TikTok bio. I'm not saying this is a red flag. I'm starting to see more of a pinkish hue though. A new disorder has entered the chat. So in the video, they casually dropped that not only do I have DID, I also have bipolar disorder. 1 or 2 is not specified. These are two heavy hitter diagnoses. One is biological, bipolar, the other one is trauma-based, DID. Can someone have both? I mean, absolutely. It's a little rare considering the rarity of both.
I would not say it's rare. DID is a very complex trauma disorder based in dissociation. There is a lot of trauma that goes into developing that. Chronic trauma like that will cause things like other physical disabilities, definitely other mental disabilities. There are a lot of co-occurring disorders with DID, such as depression and anxiety. Bipolar disorder, I've heard, is fairly common, and so is borderline personality disorder. And even schizophrenia is fairly common to be co-occurring with DID.
Disorders. Around this time, they mentioned a psych hold, and then suddenly they have DID. So welcome to Can You Get Diagnosed with DID in the Psych Ward? Technically, yes. Realistically, no. Psych holds are typically short. They're focused on keeping you safe.
I didn't see them claim to be diagnosed in the psych ward. I just saw them say that they were in a psych ward and that they had bipolar and DID. Not that those were diagnosed in the psych ward. So that is just an assumption with no backing to it.
Not on deep trauma patterns. DID takes months of interviews, observations, ruling literally everything else out. It might not be for every single person.
I was hospitalized once and suddenly I learned that I'm plural.
And this is not shade on anyone. I mean, this is more of a clinical reality. But just when you thought.
I will say about that, being in a place such as a psych ward can be very destabilizing. It's a new environment. If it's your first time there, you won't know what to expect. It can be traumatizing. It is not unheard of for people with DID to discover that they have DID and have alters while they are in a place like that. That's not what happened with us, as far as I can remember. But it's not surprising or impossible for people with DID and OSDD to discover that they have alters while in a situation such as that. Even if it's not a traumatizing experience, some people feel more stable in psych wards. They feel safer. It's a place meant to prevent you from hurting yourself and others. You have no contact with the outside world in most cases. So a lot of it is learning some coping skills and a lot of time just with yourself to think and reflect. It's not surprising to me that people would discover that they have altars in a place like that.
The diagnostic roster was full. Another diagnosis enters the arena.
I was in love, Steven, like out of my mind in love. What was I supposed to do?
So now we're at, how many, diagnoses? Bipolar, BPD, DID, chronic pain. It's giving, DSM expansion pack. But no, wait, hold on, Michelle. DID and BPD are more commonly comorbid. They both commonly have trauma as their origin story. So yeah, it's kind of like your brain just has like multiple tabs open. I'm not a professional, so you can have BPD, DID, and bipolar disorder. In practice, that combo can be more rare, but even then, it takes a trauma-informed specialist to even begin sorting this out. At first, I thought they were mixing them up, like they thought that BPD equals bipolar disorder, but then you see the caption and it's like, please stop asking people with BPD why they stayed so long. Yeah, so that is borderline personality disorder coded. Naturally, the next step is a full-blown alter photo shoot for science.
Post some random video to check if you are photogenic.
So as you can see, they're doing that trendy, like, oh, you take a video and it takes an aesthetic picture every 0.5 seconds. And then in most cases, it ends up looking spontaneous and aesthetic, except this was not a fit check. This was blowing smoke into the camera. And the caption, checking how photogenic different alters are. Here's the thing, if we were to assume that they were diagnosed with DID recently, and by recently, I mean even in the past few years, you might be confused, scared, not so much, hey y'all, check out how my different alters react.
That might be your reaction to it. When we had a TikTok account and was posting videos, a lot of them were transitions with other alters on our system. That helped a lot with communication. Getting to know your alters, even just in small ways like that, can help communication. The main thing about DID and starting to manage that and manage your symptoms is working on communication. That is very important. I think I was going to say something else, but I don't remember.
To the bong hit. As you can see, I'm not that cool. But at the same time, let's not shame people who are trying to express themselves. I'm just jumping on this because naturally, the next step in a serious diagnosis is, I don't know, hopping on the trending sounds.
Michael! Don't leave me here! Michael! Michael! Help me!
So in this video, we're talking about or meeting the Gatekeeper, an alter that some systems have that actually manages, switches, and protects the system. Excuse me, I've done my fair share of interviews with people who live with DID. Not everyone will refer to themselves as a system. I digress, every therapist is different. But here, am I understanding the Gatekeeper is locking an alter out because they didn't want to talk to the therapist?
That happens. That happens. It's very common that it happens, especially if it is not safe for an alter to be speaking about something. Gatekeepers will keep that alter away from front, especially during therapy, simply because it's not safe to speak about it. for some gatekeepers who may also be persecutors, like Evan Prefusion was a gatekeeper and persecutor, it may have more malicious intentions. But that's not something that never happens. It's happened with us. It's happened with other systems that we know. It does happen.
It's about their feelings. That sounds like a thing between you and your therapist. However, they did make a TikTok about it. Like, I'm so
Why not make a TikTok about it? If they want to share that experience, why not? Why can they not? We shared a lot of our experiences with our system on TikTok when we had an account. I'm not seeing the issue here, honestly.
confused. Is this kind of like a trauma response or a power move? The whole point of DID recovery is learning to communicate with alters, not so much punish each other.
Persecutors and even alters who are not persecutors may still engage in persecutory behavior within the system. It's not ideal. It's not fun. We have an alter in our system whose entire role is managing conflict within the system. She is very busy, almost constantly. She does love her role, though. Not all alters are going to get along, not all alters are going to like each other. Some alters may hate each other. Some alters may hurt each other. We have an entire subsystem. I'm not going to go into details about the type of trauma that exists with that. But some of the alters in that subsystem are persecutors who will reenact the abuse that we experienced onto the other alters in that subsystem. Obviously, it's not ideal, it's not...
And for a newly died...
It's not what should be happening, but it happens. It's common in many systems, not just ours. And it's honestly not spoken about enough how alters can harm each other. It's not just having friends in your head or people that you need to work with to live life. It's much more complex than that.
Diagnosed system, the internal play-by-play is oddly detailed. They know who's fronting, who's being locked out, and why in real time. It's not impossible, obviously, it's just surprisingly...
One, how do you know that it is in real time? Two, some alters have a more awareness of the system than others, such as gatekeepers and protectors. They will often hold more knowledge much more knowledge about the system and alters in it than an alter that is the host. There are parts of our inner world that only a small handful of alters can access. The subsystem I mentioned before, we only have one alter who is able to move in and out of that. For some context, our inner world, one of the things in it is a large mansion that a lot of us have rooms in. And the front room for the main system is in there. There are stairs to the basement level where the gatekeepers can access it. Some protectors can access it. I can access it. At least part of it. But for alters who don't have access to that, it's just a solid wall instead of a doorway with stairs. It's just completely solid. They can't get into it. It's completely sealed off to them. And that's also very common in systems, especially complex systems.
Scripted for someone who is still figuring it out. Also, blocking a switch or forcing one, that can hurt. Not only with trust, but an alter can physically feel nauseated.
Oh, definitely. But it doesn't stop it from happening. There are many streams where we have fought switches. And there are many streams where alters have forced themselves into the front because they wanted to do something. Not on purpose all the time. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes it's more unintentional. But it's not all of it is unconsensual. If there's an alter in the front who is very distressed, a switch may be forced so that they can calm down and not have to deal with whatever is stressing them out. If an alter is tired of being in front and just exhausted and needs a break, obviously there can't just be nobody in the body, at least in our system. I don't know how it works for other systems. But they will often ask nearby alters to either switch with them or to get someone to switch with them. Some of it is asked for, and some of it is not. It's not just, oh, this is all bad, so it should never happen. It's very individualized to the system and to the alters, and also varies based on circumstances.
Disoriented. Spring brings flowers, summer, your beach days. And fall brings a new diagnosis.
No.
AU. DID is a trauma disorder, not a fantasy trait generator? I'm sorry, they are talking about healing. Let's get into the Final Fusion rants. The doctor said to just start Final Fusion, you'll feel much better. When you pretend to be normal, just don't show the cracks forming. No one will be fighting for control anymore. Just avoid stress, because this is like using school glue for a broken vase. Well, why are you upset? I took your weirdness away. Now you won't make people uncomfortable. Now you're just one person forever. Well, sorta. What do you mean you want functional multiplicity? Well, why would you only want a little bit of a disorder when you could be normal? I wasn't there. It does sound a little bit like the therapist was like, hey, let's stabilize, and they were just more like, hey, you monster. I'm confused. Are they against functional multiplicity for themselves or for everyone?
That's not what I got from that video. What I got from that video is a therapist who was pushing Final Fusion onto them when they would rather have functional multiplicity. Both are valid options for healing. For us, our goal as of now is functional multiplicity, mainly because we don't believe that we could ever achieve Final Fusion with how complex our system is, with how many subsystems we have, with the amount of trauma that we've been through. We don't think that one person would be able to hold all of that. But that does not mean that Final Fusion is bad, or that functional multiplicity is the only way that anyone should be healing. It is each system's choice which path they would like to choose. It is all very individualized and unique to each system, because everyone is different, everyone has gone through different traumas. Different traumas, and each system is set up differently. No two systems will have the same alters, or the same way of processing things, or anything like that.
A quick breakdown: when you have DID, a goal in therapy might be Final Fusion or functional multiplicity. Final Fusion is when all alters integrate into one identity or me. Functional multiplicity means the system still exists, but the parts can communicate, cooperate, and live life without so much chaos. But hold up, I could be so off here. Did Leviathan not just get diagnosed like last year? Genuine question, would a therapist be pushing for integration this early on?
Some therapists might. Not all therapists who treat DID and trauma are good therapists. Our last therapist was good at first, and then it spiraled very quickly. And that is a whole thing I could get into. I don't think I'm going to, at least not today. I will just say that she started moving away from actual proven techniques for therapy and started going more holistic. We do have a new therapist now, and she is wonderful.
That's like showing up to one trauma session and being handed a diploma. Also, I love context. What therapy exactly are we doing here? We've heard about the cracks. I'm still waiting on the clinical tools, though. Anyway, plot twist number 47 just...
I am genuinely not sure what she meant by that. Genuinely, I have no clue. But also, it's not the patient's responsibility or job to know all the clinical terms. If they do, that is great. If they don't, that is fine. They are the patient and not the professional.
It's dropped because let's go to the psych ward subplot. So the caption is, how did you manipulate the hospital staff into letting you leave after a 9-day cycle while still in psychosis? And the answer, the protector Nate said, don't ask me how I did it, I just did it, it was hard. Okay, wait, so are we out here flexing about outsmarting psychiatric professionals while we are mid-psychosis? I'm not...
I don't know the context of that. I don't know what went on in that psych ward or why they chose to do that. But because it is a protector altar, my first assumption of that would be that it was not a good or safe situation for them to be in. Not all psych wards are good. They are places that are supposed to keep you and others safe. But there are also some that don't really care, to put it lightly. I'm not saying that that's for sure what happened in this case. They've given information that they feel comfortable giving. Yes, it's not necessarily a good thing, especially if they are mid-psychosis. But if it was a dangerous situation, and it would be less dangerous for them to get out of that, then that is completely understandable. And even alters who are not persecutors may have persecutory behaviors, such as pushing people away who are trying to help, isolating, things such as that.
I'm not seeing as much trauma education as I am Criminal Minds side plots.
Again, no one with DID or OSDD owes anyone education. Some systems don't want to educate at all, and that is fine as long as they are not spreading misinformation. Some systems, all they want to do is educate. And then there are other systems who want to do a mix of both. and that is fine too. But nobody owes you constant education on a disorder that they live with and struggle with. We're people too. And especially because DID is a severe complex trauma disorder that comes with obviously a lot of dissociation, because that is the basis of the disorder. Sometimes systems will only have the energy to just do something that they'd like to do. They won't have the energy to make educational content. It's why I haven't been streaming for a while. Mainly because we have been very tired, and I've been very busy. But Echo has streamed a few times from what I've seen. If she doesn't want to educate, she doesn't have to. We're people too. We deserve to relax and just exist. We are not sentient beings of pure knowledge on a disorder that we live with. We have our own feelings and likes and dislikes. We deserve to live and exist too.
Psychosis is different for everyone. I don't know, it might be a little hard to negotiate a discharge, let alone manipulate the staff. Saying they let Nate go because Nate is smart, that might be meant to sound empowering, but it comes off as a little theatrical, like a plot twist from a drama series, or perhaps Billy Milligan.
I'm not even going to get into the drama series Billy Milligan thing. Mostly because I don't have too much knowledge on that, but also because I don't have the energy. People who have been in and out of psych wards, and people who know how to mask, and who know how to pretend to be okay, it's not very difficult to keep up that act to get out of a psych ward. The first time we went into a psych ward was the day of our 8th grade graduation. The day we arrived, we met another person in the unit who was being discharged that day. I do remember them comforting us, because we were honestly terrified of being in there. We didn't want to be in there. But they looked very happy and relaxed and excited to be going home. They were back a few days later while we were still in there. And they just looked and felt like a completely different person. That's how effective masking can be. And unfortunately, there is no real foolproof way to tell if someone is masking or not. But it is not very difficult to play the part and act like you are fine to get released early. Especially if you are used to doing that and used to pretending that you are fine.
But also, why are we flexing about avoiding medical help while we're in a psychiatric emergency? Alright, so this performance arc must be dying down. No, we're gonna pivot one more time. This time calling out ableism online, and there is a little bit of contradiction.
No. No. Guys, I need you to spam Rozzy chill.
So the caption here is, when fake activists are actually ableist and think they know more than a psychologist because they saw a system online. Bruh, cause no, you right 110%. Except, hold on, didn't you post a video dragging McLean Hospital?
Everyone should be dragging McLean Hospital. Genuinely. What McLean Hospital did was absolutely unacceptable and absolutely disgusting. And the effects of that are still being felt by the systems who were in that presentation without their consent. That is not something that anyone should be supporting or encouraging or standing up for. They should have never done that. Absolutely unacceptable. And anyone who defends what they did has lost all my respect, if I ever had any for them to begin with. That presentation was so damaging, so incredibly harmful. And because it came up in this, I will be putting the link to our reaction to the McLean Hospital presentation in the pinned comment of the YouTube video. Because we did do a stream reacting to it. I believe it's one of the only videos that has the McLean presentation in general. I believe that Corvin was the one who did that video. There may have been a couple switches in there as well. I was going to try and do another video after this, but I am much too dissociated. We didn't get much sleep. Daylight savings is not a good time for us. Both 1 hour forward and 1 hour back. It messes with our sleep schedule immensely.
They're one of the most well-known DID treatment centers, and they did make a video talking about how a lot of people online glamorize DID. So it's okay when you think the professionals are wrong.
They were wrong because they broke laws. None of the people in the videos that they used, one, consented to their videos being used in that presentation, but two, McLean Hospital never treated them as a patient. And even if they had, that would not make it okay for them to then use their videos in that presentation, insinuating that they are faking, and that because they don't present online the same way that some DID systems present in person, insinuating that they are faking. The fact that people are still trying to defend McLean Hospital for what they did is absolutely absurd and absolutely disgusting. None of these systems in that presentation gave their consent. None of those systems were ever treated by the hospital or any of the doctors there. None of those systems in that presentation deserved what McLean did to them. They didn't deserve any of the backlash or harassment that they received because of that presentation. They didn't deserve all of the emotional and mental stressors that that presentation caused. I know for at least a couple systems who were in that presentation made them question their entire DID diagnosis. Because, oh, well, what if McLean is right? Maybe I am faking because I don't want to constantly hide away and isolate myself. because I actually want to speak up. Because I actually want to live as myself instead of trying to constantly mask as whoever everyone else expects us to be. So many systems after that presentation came out decided to never speak about their DID. That presentation caused irreversible harm and incredible amounts of damage. And it's still being felt in the DID community to this day. And it will for a very, very long time. Just because it is a professional hospital does not mean that they get to do whatever they want. That just makes me upset.
But then when someone questions your aesthetic alter montage, they're ableist? Anyways, nowadays they're on TikTok making videos about functional multiplicity, LGBT rights, politics. I was ready for another overfiltered alter arc. However, wait. They made a video about covert systems versus overt systems, which is kind of fire. So when you are an overt DID system, your switches might be more noticeable. Your alters might have different names, voices, mannerisms.
That is incorrect, first of all. Even in covert DID, alters may have different names and mannerisms. I am very obviously different in the way that I speak and present than Echo is. Alters are their own people. Covert just means it's hidden. There is more masking. It's not something that attention is drawn to. When switches happen, they will most likely be masked or subdued, and whoever switches in will mask as whoever was presented first. They will just pretend to be that alter even though they are not. Overt DID doesn't have that masking, or at least not as much of it. Things will be more noticeable. But alters simply having names does not mean that they are an overt system. We are very overt online. Offline, we are very covert. we are a covert system, even though we present online as a very overt system. There may be small little differences when we're masking, but unless you knew us extremely well, you wouldn't think anything of it. And that is the point. Covert DID is also much more common than overt DID. Mainly because DID exists to hide trauma and memories. Overt DID may develop if it's more beneficial for the system to potentially scare off an abuser. Because some people, if they see a person or a child acting extremely differently, and being very obvious that there was a switch, even if the people around them don't know that's what it is, that can be beneficial to stop whatever is happening to them. If they are suddenly loud and outspoken and very defensive and very aggressive, they are more likely to just be labeled as a very aggressive person, and that might be enough to have people leave them alone. For others, us included, for us specifically, we were always discouraged, to put it very lightly, from speaking out and making ourselves known. If we learned to hide and be quiet, our chances of being hurt were lessened. Because we weren't as big of a target. We're still trying to process that, and unlearn it, which is one of the reasons that we are refusing to be intimidated into silence. But that was ingrained very deeply into us.
Sometimes there's a very dramatic change and it's noticeable that something is happening. Now, this is actually a very small percentage of people with DID. However, most of the people who are like famous online that have DID are overt system.
That is incorrect. They may be overt online, but many of them have stated that offline they are very covert. Online you are in control of what you post and what you share. You don't have that luxury offline. So it's easier to unmask online. Masking is very exhausting. We have alters, myself included, who outright refuse to mask. Obviously, if it is a more dangerous situation where it's a necessity to mask, I will mask. But for the most part, I do not mask.
When you're a covert system, your switches might be more subtle. Alters might not be as openly identifiable, and if you don't know what's going on, you might just think the person is being like more moody or distant. And overt systems are easier to dramatize on TikTok or YouTube. You have distinct alters. You show switches on camera and make.
Just because you show switches on camera does not make you an overt system. Dissociated specifically has stated that they are very covert offline. We have had switches on live streams before. That's not something that we can really control. That does not make us an overt system. We may present as very overt online, but we are very covert offline.
You know, skits or intros for each alter. And honestly, it's what a lot of people expect when they imagine DID, because like, hey, have you seen Split? And it's like, okay, maybe this creator always did have DID and they're just talking about it more recently.
DID forms in childhood. So technically, you will always have DID. It's just a matter of discovering that you have it.
That's totally valid. People disclose at their own pace. Not everyone gets their trauma arc greenlit in season 1. And before anyone jumps in and they're like, hey, but Michelle, guess what? You're being ableist. Let me be super duper clear here. Self-expression is valid, but it's also already such a stigmatized disorder, and I just cannot for the life of me imagine somebody glamorizing their PTSD.
We are our own people. Alters are their own people. Alters are allowed to express themselves, just like any person without DID or OSDD would. If you do not have DID or OSDD, I genuinely think you should not be speaking about it. At least not in the way that a lot of these people do, where they look for things that don't exactly line up with what idea they have in their head about what DID should be. DID is very stigmatized. These videos do not help. These videos make it worse. These videos spread more misinformation. Videos stigmatize the disorder more. You can talk about DID and OSDD. However, you need to have sources, for one, which there are none in this video. For two, you need to do research beyond just reading medical studies. You also need to use common sense. Not everyone posts everything online. People with DID and OSDD can't seem to win. If they post something positive, or them just being themselves, then it's suddenly romanticizing the disorder. But if they post something like, for example, how in this video specifically, there was a TikTok video shown of how a gatekeeper locked one of the alters out of front. Suddenly that means that we're dramatizing it and making it seem like a soap opera. Nobody owes you education all the time. Nobody owes you education at all. We have been very open to saying we will answer questions if you have any about our system specifically or about DID. We will do our best to answer it. On top of that, we have always said that we are not professionals. We are just someone who lives with the disorder every single day. It is not so simple. It's not as simple as, oh, just add something educational in all of your videos, because that's not feasible and not fair. People with DID already struggle with CPTSD because it is a trauma disorder. Extreme dissociation, a lot of the time. Obviously, the amnesia and memory gaps, which makes it difficult to even have something as simple as a schedule. So if a system wants to just post a few TikToks with alter introductions where they dress as themselves and present as themselves without masking, they are allowed to do that. They don't need to explain why they are choosing to do that. They don't need to be educational if they do not want to be. I do enjoy doing these streams because I do believe that it puts out more correct information rather than continuing to spread misinformation and stigma. But I also do tend to get very heated while doing these because these people without DID or OSDD are demanding that people with a severe complex dissociative disorder stemming from severe and repeated trauma they're demanding that all they do is educate people. It is a very entitled mindset to have. We're already traumatized. I know I've been fairly heavily dissociating throughout the stream. Sometimes we dissociate so heavily that we can't even put a sentence together. It's like asking someone who has an amputation to not post any videos unless there's something educational in all of them. We don't exist just to educate you, and we don't exist just to be something entertaining. We are real people with real emotions, and we deserve the same respect that anyone else without DID or OSDD receives. People are allowed to just post fun, lighthearted content if they wish. It does not have to be educational. My streams are educational. I have made that very clear. But that does not mean that people get to go around and demand that Echo or Michaela or Eras or anyone else in my system should pivot their content to just be educational. If they want to add educational factors into it, that is their choice. If they want to do a stream just for education, that is their choice. If they want to just do a stream where they are playing a game that they enjoy without anything educational at all, they are allowed to do that. Because they are people too. And not everything has to be related to a disorder that in a perfect world would never exist. Systems already struggle enough. And nobody owes you the emotional labor of education. If you really want to educate yourself more about the disorder, there is this wonderful thing called the internet, or books. But you cannot sit here as someone without DID or OSDD and demand that a system simply existing online make videos that will educate more. That is not fair to anyone.
It comes down to TikTok rewards performance over honesty. And that hurts everyone, especially people who are living with the disorder, who are just trying to get through the day without getting fake claimed.
These videos hurt more than people simply existing on TikTok. And I'm not going to apologize for it because that is the truth. These videos, these channels who focus on things like this are harmful. They are more harmful than one system on TikTok who might be faking. Especially when you have a larger platform. Spreading misinformation like this is harmful and extremely irresponsible. And I am hoping that by doing these streams, more people are made aware of that. I don't think that my streams will have a large impact. I don't think that these streams will prevent people from making these videos or stop it completely. I think my tab just crashed. That's fine. I was going to end stream anyway. So again, do not harass or attack or insult anyone mentioned in these videos. There will be a pinned comment on the YouTube VOD with the link to our Google Doc with sources. I will make sure to also put in that comment the link to the video we did on the McLean situation. Take care of yourselves, hydrate, make sure that you are taking any medication if you do take medication. And I hope that you have a good rest of your day or night. Thank you.